Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Sourdough for Beginners. This video is going to go really quick, but it shows you how easy it can be to make sourdough. You can do this whole recipe in one clear straight-sided container. You want it to be about 6 or 8 cups in size because that's a nice snug fit for the dough, and it's going to make it so that you can see the dough during bulk proofing. Bulk proofing is definitely the most important part of making sourdough. So we're going to put a little bit of focus on that later in the video. So the recipe is pretty straightforward. I'm showing it to you in either grams or cups, whatever you prefer. In grams, it's basically 350 grams of water, 500 grams of flour, 100 grams of starter, and 10 grams of salt. We're just going to dissolve the starter into the water, add the flour, add the salt, get it mixed up to a shaggy dough, and then we're going to do 30 minutes rest, followed by a stretch and fold 4 times. Stretching and folding is building strength into the dough. So it's essentially the same as kneading, but sourdough is much too sticky. So each time we do another set of stretching and folding, the dough is getting smoother, it's getting more elastic, it's starting to stick to itself more than it sticks to anything else. So it's definitely what we would consider an essential process. If you haven't seen my Essential Processes ebook, definitely consider getting it. It's 34 pages. It digs really deep into sourdough and explains to you, what the essential processes are and why we think you should follow them. So basically, have an active starter, get your dough mixed, stretch and fold 3 or 4 times, bulk proof, make sure that your dough is really bulk proofing well. Don't overproof it, don't underproof it. And then at that point, you would pre-shape your dough and shape your dough, and then you have the choice. You can either cold proof or bake right away. After cold proofing or when you're ready to bake, then you score your dough and bake it. So here we go. The stretching and folding is done here in the video now, and I've pressed the dough down into the container. And this is an important step, especially when you're a beginner. What you do is you mark the height of your bread. This is going to show you how much it's bulk proofed. You can see in this photo that it's at about 75% here. We say bulk proofed is 75% if you're going to cold proof, or to 100% if you're going to bake the same day. Cold proofing is optional, but for this video, I'm going to do the cold proofing. The cold proofing will allow the dough to rise a little bit more. That's why we say go to 75%, but it also allows the gluten structure to continue to develop. We're pre-shaping here. Pre-shaping is a pretty important part of the process. It reduces the stickiness in the dough. It makes the dough much easier to work with, but it's also, trapping important air into the dough. So while we're shaping here, same thing. We're going to flip the dough over, give it a little bit of a stretch, fold it like a pamphlet, top third down, bottom third up. Then we're going to go to the side and we're going to gently stretch as we roll. We're being gentle so that we don't push the air out, but we're also being firm enough to build a nice tension, right? A nice tight loaf, because that tension is what allows the dough to spring in the oven. Stitching up our dough once it's in the banneton is an optional step, but again, same thing. It's just pulling the dough a little bit tighter around itself, building up more tension. The more tension that's in your bread, the more air is trapped inside, the more spring you're going to get in the oven, especially if your dough is proofed really well. So for this loaf, I stuck it in the oven overnight. It was about 8 hours. We're going to get ready to bake now. You can bake in a Dutch oven, on a pizza stone, in a loaf pan. There's a million different ways to bake sourdough, and every oven is different. What we say is find a way to get your dough to an internal temperature of 205 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever that may look like for you. I personally bake at 450 the whole time. I do 30 minutes with the lid on my Dutch oven, 20 minutes with it off, and then I start checking the temperature. So you're seeing what's called a functional score right here. This is the score that you need to have. It's about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch deep. It's going to let the steam escape and encourage that oven spring during baking. These little scores that I'm doing right now are purely aesthetic, totally optional. They just make the bread pretty. I put tinfoil in the bottom of my Dutch oven. It creates an air barrier, keeps the bottom of the loaf soft. It's entirely optional, of course. So we're going to get our Dutch oven into the oven and bake it. Another optional thing is about 10 minutes into baking, you can pull the lid of your Dutch oven, and if your functional score line is starting to fuse a little bit like you saw in this loaf, you can just cut it again. So here we go, 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Looks like we're good to go. We're just gonna let this bread cool. A little bit of a fun thing about to happen here in the video, and then we'll get you to a crumb shot. So happy baking. See you soon. What are you doing?
I'm making a sandwich.
It's not a bun. Stop! Stop! I need that for my crumb shot. All right, let's check the crumb shot. My husband just tried to cut this on the side and use it as one big sandwich. He's crazy. Oh, it sounds nice and crispy. Perfect.